Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going into a topic that's often talked about but maybe not always truly understood. What does intimacy really mean to men?
Yeah.
We've got a recent article where 8 men share their personal experiences and, well, we're here to maybe cut through some of the usual assumptions.
Exactly, because there's this common idea out there, isn't there, that, intimacy for men is primarily physical.
Right.
And look, while that's certainly a facet, we also have to consider the powerful influence of societal norms, that whole tough it out mentality.
The boys don't cry thing.
Precisely. The idea that expressing emotions is somehow, I don't know, unmanly. And these things can really shape how men view and experience closeness.
Yeah, it can almost create a kind of barrier, can't it? Where showing vulnerability feels risky, maybe, and perhaps that leads to an overemphasis on the physical side of connection.
Could be.
So our aim today is really to look beyond those stereotypes. Let's dig into the diverse and nuanced reality of what intimacy signifies for men, based on what they actually said.
And you might find some surprising perspectives here.
Definitely.
Okay, so the first key thing from this article is that for these 8 men, intimacy isn't just one thing. It's really a rich combination. Things like closeness, trust, understanding, connection, familiarity, mutual affection, physical touch, and yes, sex is in there too.
Okay.
But what's interesting is the article points out that no single one of these was like the most important across the board. It was more the synergy, the mix of these things that created real intimacy for them.
That really makes you think, doesn't it? It's not an either kind of deal.
Not at all.
The article talks about this exclusive emotional and physical bond, one built on, being able to communicate openly, showing vulnerability, and having that foundation of trust.
Yeah.
That sounds like the bedrock, really. A strong connection where, like, admiration and affection can actually, thrive.
And what's fascinating here is how the physical and emotional sides seem to support each other for a lot of these men. Well, the article suggests that engaging physically can actually help them feel safer, to lower those emotional walls that society often encourages them to build up.
Ah, okay. So it's almost like a pathway.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
A pathway to maybe a deeper emotional connection for some.
Okay, let's drill down on that physical aspect then, particularly sex. It's such a common assumption, isn't it, that for men, sex is, just physical, separate from real emotional connection.
That's the stereotype for sure. But the men in this article, they seem to have a much more integrated view. They found both sex and physical closeness important for intimacy.
Interesting.
Absolutely. And we get some really direct quotes here that kind of challenge that separation. Like Ricky says, sex is important. It's always special to get intimate with someone you love.
Special. That word choice really suggests something more than just physical, doesn't it?
It does. It points to an emotional significance. And then Marlon adds, for me, intimacy is about feeling physically connected with someone. Physical touch is definitely one of my love languages.
So for him, it's fundamental. Not just a bonus, but a primary way he experiences intimacy.
Exactly. And Jason offers this really insightful perspective. He says, when bodies work together and match each other, that feels very intimate because you're in tune with each other.
Wow. Like a nonverbal communication almost.
Yeah.
A shared rhythm.
Yeah, that sense of being perfectly in sync. Then Andy brings in another angle. He highlights the vulnerability involved in sex, how that creates a kind of connection and familiarity.
Okay.
But then he broadens it out, which I thought was interesting. He talks about the smaller moments too, like being the small spoon or the leaner on the sofa.
Ah, the everyday closeness.
Right, showing how intimacy isn't just about the big moments, but also those casual, comfortable acts of physical connection.
Makes sense.
And he also makes this point. He says, a random, joyous, and intense sexual experience is incredibly intimate. So it reminds us that sheer pleasure and, mutual abandon can be a powerful connector too.
Okay, but it wasn't unanimous, right?
Yeah.
Not everyone felt that way about sex.
No, exactly. It's important to note the different views. Eric offered a contrasting perspective. He said, honestly, I don't think sex is necessary for intimacy at all.
Really?
Yeah. And he even linked this to the potential downsides of pornography, suggesting it can actually cheapen intimacy and suppress the emotions you need to really connect.
Wow, that raises a really interesting point about how external things, like media, might shape our understanding or even our experience of intimacy.
It certainly does. Makes you wonder. And Rashid offered a kind of middle ground view. He said, intimacy is way beyond sex, but of course that's part of it too.
So a component but not the whole picture for him.
Exactly. Definitely not the defining characteristic.
Okay, so moving beyond the purely physical then, the article uncovered some really significant themes from these men's experiences. One that really jumped out was this idea of familiarity.
Ah.
Just being completely comfortable, totally at ease with your partner, feeling like you can be your absolute unfiltered self.
And what's quite telling are the seemingly small examples that illustrate this. Jason's quote, it might get a chuckle.
Oh, yeah.
He says, letting one rip in front of your partner is true intimacy.
Huh. Okay, well, it definitely speaks to that feeling of utter comfort. No need for any facade.
Exactly. Being accepted, warts and all, you could say,
Right.
in all your messy humanity.
Right. Dropping all the pretenses, just being real together.
Yeah.
Another key theme that came through really strongly was feeling cared for and understood. And this really challenges that old stereotype, of men as these totally self-sufficient islands who don't need emotional nurturing.
Absolutely. It seems they have a deep desire, actually, to feel seen and understood, even if they express those needs differently sometimes.
Yeah.
Eric's words on this were particularly moving, I thought. He said, intimacy to me is to be held and soothed, being seen for who I am and how far I've come. It's about bringing me back to the moment, taking me away from fear and worry about the world.
Wow. That speaks to a real need for emotional safety, for reassurance.
It really does. And Brendan emphasizes that universal desire for emotional support, acceptance, appreciation. He just puts it plainly. Men want to be emotionally supported and understood just like women do.
Such a straightforward reminder of our shared human needs in relationships.
Yep. Jason elaborates on this too. He talks about the importance of having a partner who is a true confidant, someone who's there, supporting you through the good times and the bad. And Rashid brings in those everyday practical elements of feeling cared for.
Like what?
Like a partner showing concern when you're sick, getting you medicine, but also respecting your boundaries, showing genuine interest in what matters to you, understanding tough decisions.
That respect piece seems key, and Keenan focused on the active listening aspect, right?
Yes. That feeling that your partner truly hears you, cares about what you're saying, and is genuinely on your side.
All these things point to that fundamental need to feel valued and understood within the relationship. Seems crucial.
Definitely. And another powerful theme that emerged was the importance of sharing emotions and experiences.
Building that shared world together.
Exactly. Building that shared history, that inner world. That creates a deeper sense of connection over time.
The examples from the men really paint a vivid picture here. Things like cooking together, having those long, meandering conversations, sharing vulnerabilities like fears and doubts, doing activities together.
Yeah, and there's that lovely phrase someone used about being mixed up in each other's business, like Ribena and water.
Huh. I like that. It captures that deep intertwining of lives perfectly.
It really does. And even just missing someone was identified as an intimate emotion.
And underpinning all of these themes, I guess, is that absolutely crucial element of safety and trust.
Oh, massively. The men consistently highlighted the need to feel emotionally safe. Safe enough to share their inner thoughts and feelings without judgment.
And trusting that their vulnerability won't be, used against them somehow.
Right. Marlin connects trust directly to intimacy. He says, when I trust someone, that brings out a want in me to be intimate with them.
Makes total sense.
And Ricky echoes that. He says he doesn't find it difficult to share his emotions as long as he has that foundational trust in the person.
So trust unlocks the door, in a way.
Seems like it. Eric describes seeking that closeness and wanting a partner to provide a sense of, upliftment and safety, especially during moments when he's feeling inadequate or anxious.
That safe harbor feeling.
Yeah. And Andy talks about the protective quality of intimacy, both physically but also psychologically, that feeling of having someone who's truly got your back.
Interesting. The article also touches on something slightly different. Intimacy with yourself.
Yes. Ricky's anecdote about going skinny dipping.
Yeah. It illustrates that sense of comfort and connection with just his own being.
And this brings up that vital point, doesn't it? That our ability to be deeply intimate with others is often, maybe always, linked to the level of self-awareness and acceptance we have within ourselves.
Like that Matt Kahn quote the article mentions.
Yes, exactly. People can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. Really resonates here.
Okay, so we've looked at what fosters intimacy for these men. Now, what about the other side? What gets in the way?
Well, it's probably not surprising that those societal expectations we mentioned earlier and the impact of what's often called toxic masculinity, they play a significant role.
Right.
Brendan actually describes intimacy as a big black hole for many men, leading to this real discomfort when emotional topics come up.
A big black hole. Wow.
He also makes a really valid point about upbringing. He notes that growing up with sisters made it easier for him to be more open emotionally.
So those early experiences really shape our comfort levels later on.
Seems so. Keenan observes that despite men having this underlying need for emotional support, there's still this ingrained belief that showing emotions is somehow for women.
That old script is still playing for some.
Definitely. And Eric's perspective is particularly insightful here, I think. He talks about the significant pressure he feels, this pressure to constantly leave and provide.
The provider role expectation.
Exactly. And the immense relief that comes from feeling loved and accepted simply for who he is without having to constantly prove his worth through achievement.
That must be exhausting, that pressure.
You'd imagine so. And then on a more personal level, several of the men shared their own individual obstacles.
Like what kind of things?
Well, Marlon mentioned feeling inadequate sometimes or unable to meet a partner's expectations, which, could certainly link back to those broader societal pressures we talked about.
Sure.
Ricky pointed to simple misunderstandings and just a lack of clear communication as barriers, things getting lost in translation.
That happens in any relationship, I suppose.
True. Rashid highlighted the frustration that comes from not feeling understood during disagreements, or dealing with what he saw as illogical reactions, feeling disrespected.
And how does that affect intimacy?
He noted how these things can lead to both emotional and eventually even sexual disconnection. The intimacy just erodes.
Right.
Eric touched on the challenges of relationship anxiety and this tendency he recognized in himself to sometimes emotionally take rather than appreciating a mutual reciprocal connection.
That's self-aware.
And Andy brought up the potential for routine and just stagnation to hinder intimacy, getting stuck in a rut.
Yeah, that can happen.
And also, interestingly, the irritation that can arise when a partner assumes they know him better than he knows himself, especially about past experiences or relationships.
Oh, I can see how that would be frustrating, like being put in a box.
Exactly. These are all quite relatable challenges, I think, in any close relationship.
Now let's revisit this idea of emancipation from toxic masculinity that came up. Jason made a really powerful connection there.
He did. He suggested that men who really subscribe to that belief that emotions are somehow for women, they often struggle to even connect with their own emotions.
Which naturally creates a huge barrier to intimacy with someone else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He identifies fear as a major obstacle here.
Fear of what?
Fear of losing control, maybe. Fear of not appearing to be the dominant one, the alpha. Fear of being seen as weak if they show vulnerability.
And it's important to acknowledge, as the article kind of subtly points out, that societal expectations can also influence how women react when men do express their emotions. It's not just on the men.
That's a very fair point. It's a two-way street influenced by these broader norms. Jason also touched on men's insecurities, things related to feeling like women are more frequently approached, maybe, and an awareness of male predatory behavior, which can create a complicated dynamic. But he contrasts these barriers with the greater comfort and ease with intimacy he observes in men who have, as you said, moved beyond these restrictive ideas of masculinity, men who are more secure in themselves.
So that internal security makes a difference.
Seems to. Rashid echoes this too, stating quite simply that feeling emasculated gets in the way of intimacy. And Ricky's anecdote about those non-gay intimate moments with his male friend, that really underscores the underlying
Fear of seeming.
effeminate.
Yeah, exactly. Fear of appearing effeminate just because of emotional openness, even when there's a genuine desire for that closeness underneath. It really highlights how deeply ingrained these societal messages can be.
It really does. Okay, so having explored all of this, what fosters intimacy, what gets in the way, what are some concrete takeaways for you, the listener, on how to maybe foster greater intimacy with the men in your life?
Well, the article offers a really practical set of suggestions drawn directly from what these men shared, which is great.
Okay, let's hear them.
Absolutely. So first key, have open conversations about sex and physical touch. And be willing to be creative in that area. Don't let it become routine or unspoken.
Make an ongoing dialogue. Good one.
Secondly, strive to create a comfortable, non-judgmental space. A space where he feels safe enough to be his authentic self. without putting up those walls.
Okay, create that safety. Number 3, ask him directly how he prefers to be supported. Don't assume. Does he need a hug? Someone to just listen quietly, maybe practical help? Ask.
Number 4, take the time to understand his love language. We hear about this a lot, but it's important. Knowing how he best gives and receives affection.
Crucial. 5, show genuine curiosity and interest in his hobbies and passions. What makes him tick? 6, when he does open up and share, practice active listening. Really hear what he's saying. Don't just wait for your turn to talk.
Good reminder. 7,
Remember that even small acts of kindness, bringing a coffee, a thoughtful text, they build significant connection over time. Don't underestimate the small stuff.
8, make an effort to create shared experiences, fun activities, making new memories together, even just regular date nights. Weave those lives together intentionally.
Love that. 9, offer encouragement, support, and verbal affirmations. Let him know you see him, you appreciate him. Words matter.
They really do. 10,
This is important. Consciously avoid linking his worth to his financial success or, outdated notions of being an alpha male. Let him be valued for who he is.
yeah, detach from those pressures. 11,
Be his advocate. Be protective and supportive. Truly have his back, as they say. Show you're on his team.
12 involves a bit of self-reflection for the listener.
It does. Consider any negative reactions you might have had in the past when men have shown their emotions. We all play a part in creating that safe space, remember.
Good point. 13,
Practice open and honest communication yourself. Steer clear of passive aggression, mind games, that kind of thing. Be direct. Be kind.
14 is a tip specifically for parents.
Yes. Encourage boys from a young age to feel comfortable expressing their full range of emotions, not just anger or stoicism.
Set that foundation early. And finally, 15.
Respect his boundaries and allow him to open up at his own pace without pressure or judgment. Intimacy can't be forced.
Right, give him space when needed. Wow, that's a really comprehensive list based on their experiences.
It is very practical.
So as we bring this deep dive to a close, it feels, well, encouraging, actually, to see what seems like a growing understanding of the complex emotional needs of men in our society.
I agree. And it's just crucial to remember that, like any group, men are incredibly diverse. Some might naturally be more reserved, sure. Others might deeply desire intimacy but face real challenges in expressing or achieving it for various reasons.
So if you're in a relationship, maybe the takeaway is to initiate those open, honest conversations
Oh,
about what intimacy truly means to both of you,
yeah.
what it looks like, what you both need.
Absolutely. Because the core insight here, I think, from these men's experiences is that for the majority, the desire for intimacy goes far beyond just the physical. That emotional closeness, companionship, feeling truly understood, these are deeply valued.
Yeah, that really comes through. Okay, and on that note, here's our final thought for you to maybe ponder after this. Reflect on the ways that societal expectations, maybe for both men and women, might be subconsciously influencing your own understanding and experiences of intimacy, and then maybe consider just one small step you could take, maybe today, maybe this week, to challenge those expectations in your own life or perhaps within your relationships.
A powerful thought to end on.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.